Welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board. This is, what is today? The 12th of March, 2025. It's just 5:02 p.m. and we're going to start by saying the pledge. If you'll join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're all running late tonight. If this is in your way, I can move it.
Sorry.
It's okay. I'm at a committee interview, so I'm running late too.
Okay, so Trustee Winslow's absent and excused. Trustee Kidda will be coming shortly, so he's excused until he gets here. Trustee Leighton.
Here.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Treasurer Rickauer.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here.
Staff present is Manager Kangas, Attorney Roger Zappa, our Finance Director Kim Clark is here, and we have Leanne Kashmarsky here from the Planning Commission.
Okay. Does anybody want to address the board before we get started? Any public comment?
I'm Bob Kimbenzi, 306 North 6th Street in the city of Marquette. But I'm also a property owner in the township. We have a duplex we've had for 40 years. One grandson lives in part of that. And I guess maybe my comments or my knowledge of what was maybe going on came from the last meeting and information that was provided on the news about the proposed development that's just off of 492 from the Renovar Marquette. And at the last comments were, they were here asking for, I don't know, was it 24 years of tax relief, give them the taxes instead of collect them for the township. And that just kind of struck a kind of a sore spot. We've been kind of looking at that in the city of Marquette for quite a while. It seems like everybody that comes and wants to do something, they're looking for a free ride on part of it. And it's not the way to go. I mean, any development should be able to be done and completed on its own without asking for a tax break. I mean, the township, there's enough of a problem here, we all know, with the big box stores and everything else. And all you need to do is come into the township hall is drive up the road from the highway here, and you just about lose your car in the potholes. So, that money, which isn't a horribly large amount to start with, but it needs to stay with the township for township projects and items that are on your list yourselves. I talked to Carl Kidda about a little over an hour ago on something else, on a project actually. And then it's, well, as long as you called me, Carl, and I know you're on the town board. So now what he told me was that most likely, at least at this point, you've decided that you're not going to give that fantastic tax break. And I think probably, if not 99% or 100% of the people in the township would want to say that's what we'd like to see you do. So those are my comments.
Good. Appreciate it, Paul. Thank you. Anybody else wish to address the board?
Ernie Johnson, 1962 West Fair Avenue. I'd like to reserve time on 6B after you have finished discussing that item.
After? Okay.
Yes, after.
Okay. Anybody else?
Hi, Leanne Kashmarsky, Oak Hill Estates, a subdivision, and in regards to Renovari, I agree with what Mr. Cambenzi had to say. 30 years is too long to wait for a return on your investment, no matter what you're looking at. I think 48 units on 5 acres is a little over ambitious. I can't imagine that fitting on that property, especially the way it's laid out. And also, I understand on the purchase agreement that Renovari brought to the board that it wasn't written very well. And I believe that there wasn't even a correct name on the purchase agreement. That's a huge red flag, speaking to the professionalism of that organization. So that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thanks, Leanne. Okay, anybody else? I think we did everybody. Thank you. Did we have any emails?
No.
We did have one note. I don't know how we got this from Tim,
Oh, well,
that I thought I'd read.
From who?
Does it say Tim on Vandenberg?
yeah,
Oh, I gave you a copy of that.
Yeah. I was going to read it.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
that
know
was the point.
who it is, yeah. It's dated 2/24/25. It says, "Hello, I just wanted to let you know the guys you had running around fixing the sewer were awesome. They were friendly, courteous, and very respectful of our property. They always made sure the gate was closed and latched so the dogs didn't get out. Thank you." That's a comment from the public. We like hearing that. I do anyway.
Let me see that note. I gotta put it in the minutes.
Okay.
Might I add real quick?
Absolutely.
Each of the employees that were involved in that project have a copy of that in their file as well.
Oh, good. Okay, any comments based on what we heard from the public? This is board member comment. Just move on.
I'm sure I'll have something when it comes up, but I'll wait until then.
Okay. All right, then we need approval of tonight's consent agenda, which consists of regular meeting minutes of February 19th, 2025. We have bills payable in the amount of $123,460. No other reports. Correspondence we put in, not requiring action. I did put in our third annual safety forum that'll be right here in our community room on March 27th at 6 p.m. We'll have fire department, we'll have upset, we'll have the sheriff's department. Come in and listen, to talk to them. They'll have presentations, they might have handouts. I'll make some coffee and get some donuts or cupcakes or cookies or something. It's a great night. We saw some awesome pictures last year of fires, and it was really interesting. CPR, how to do that. Sheriff's Department, he'll be here. It's a good night. Anyway, it takes about an hour, hour and a half, so it's not like it takes up your whole night. Then we have the close-up report on the University of Michigan on public services. And the state of Michigan has 2 cases keep coming up, in case you want to go to them. We've got proposed ORV ordinance. The county will have a public hearing on March 18th at 6 p.m. You want to participate in that. And then we've got the minutes from the Board of Trustees meeting at the Public Library, here at Public Library, from Tuesday, February 18th.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'm not aware of any conflicts of interest on this agenda.
I'll move that we accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. First up is our annual update from Travel Marquette. Susan Essler, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I may go through this a little quickly just because I know you have a pretty heavy agenda. I've left my card for all of you, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them either at this time or later on.
See if it works. Or
Yeah, I know. Roll the dice. Nope. No.
Okay, well, I think I
Okay.
can move it then. Yeah, I can move it. Just let me know when you need it moved.
Okay, you can go ahead to the first slide. Thank you.
Okay.
So I want to give you a little bit of an overview of, we are just a very small cog in a very large wheel. The country has Brand USA, which represents the entire US, to the international market. And so there are 66.5 million international visitors that arrived in 2023. 15% of them visit friends and family. They visit 2 to 3 cities, and they plan 1 to 3 months in advance. So international travelers, which we do get some, tend to spend more money, and they stay longer. You can go to the next. So from there, we have Travel Michigan and Pure Michigan. That's a state organization, and I'm actually on the Travel Commission for Pure Michigan as well, in helping work with them to come up with strategic plan and other items. So Travel Michigan is the state agency. Pure Michigan is actually the marketing campaign that they use, and it's been very successful for quite a long time. 2023, there were 131.7 million people that visited the state of Michigan, and 77.2 million are visiting for the day, and 55.4 million stayed overnight. 98% of the overnight stays are repeat visitors, and of those, 68% visited in the past 12 months. So a lot of repeat visitors. You can go to the next slide. So this is actually from Travel Michigan's website, and it gives you kind of an overview of the main purpose. This is for the entire state. You'll notice that 46% visit friends and family and relatives, and these are all the reasons why they're coming here. So that gives you an overview of that as well. You can go to the next slide. So the visitor spend in millions for Marquette County. These are the amounts that we have. 16.6% share of the region, meaning the UP, and we are 0.9% share of the state. You can go. So visitor spend, Travel Michigan, tourism economics for 2023. Total visitor spend for Marquette County is $268.3 million. And you can see the different categories in which they spend. So employment based from Travel Michigan, the share of the region is 22.8%, and share of county employment is 11% are actually in the tourism industry. Tourism supported employment, you can see the actual numbers for Marquette County, and the tourism supported labor income. So from there, this is based, so we have a couple different systems that we use, Datafy and also Placer AI. This is Datafy, just giving you an idea of the number of visitors that we have here in Marquette County. This doesn't include day visitors. It is people who are coming and staying overnight. Don't necessarily know where they're staying, whether it's hotels or Airbnbs or with friends and family, but these give you some ideas of the numbers. So repeat and one-time visitation from Datafy, you can see the differences in how often people are coming here, the one-time visitor versus repeat visitors. And so the majority of people are actually repeat visitors. So some ask how we're funded. We're actually 501c6 and we're fully funded by 5% hotel assessment according to Michigan's Public Act 59. So 22,000 citizens in the city of Marquette, 66,000 citizens within Marquette County roughly, 8,000 students at Northern Michigan University. We have 1,630 hotel rooms presently within Marquette County. And there are approximately 1,100 campsites within Marquette County, and we have 635 short-term rentals that can accommodate up to 3,000 people. So for the past 12 months, hotels, this is based off the end of 23, 53.7% occupancy year across the board, and the average daily rate is $138.97 for the average daily rate. So it's very difficult to see, but it is a list of all the hotels that we have. And the green one is a new hotel. The red was Value Host, which was taken down. And then we had two others that are opening up. We have the Best Western Plus, and then we also have a small boutique hotel that's in downtown Marquette. And I believe that Fairfield is going to start working on their addition to their space this spring, pretty soon. So just so you know, this is who makes up our board currently. These are our board of directors. They're all hoteliers, and they're throughout the county. So what we do is we advertise both digitally and traditionally with the website. That's a big driver for us. For many years, we produced a travel guide. We're no longer doing that just because of the cost of printing, and the postage has increased tremendously. And we've also found that not always are all of the guides used, and they're disposed of, and so we are working on the website to really beef it up so that that is the tool that we use. So we've kind of shifted to a small panel brochure that has QR codes where you can get the most up-to-date information, because as everybody knows, as soon as you print something, it's out of date. So that is what we're working on. Thanks. So some of the work we do, you may or may not see in Marquette County. We do public relations, and we get stories about the area all across the country. And for the UP 200, we actually had a visitor here from Germany, and she was going across the UP, and so she happened to be at the UP 200, and she also went out at Forestville on a fat tire bike in the snow. So that was first time for her. You can go on. So some of the community programs that we do, we have an accessible program, and we have partnered with Sales since 2019 and worked with them. We've received an MDAR grant for the first accessible guide that we did. We have over 175 different businesses and recreation areas and there have been reviewed on our website. And we also received a grant from Pure Michigan for videos in different locations for 360 videos that we're putting up on our website. And we actually all just received our accreditation for autism and working with autistic individuals. So that just happened yesterday, so it's good news. We're working to make everyone welcome within the county. We also have Respect Marquette County, which I've been here and spoken to you about, and Heather has as well. And it's really a robust program now. We have quarterly meetings where we have about 20 to 30 different individuals coming from different organizations to work with us to help us guide where to send visitors, where not to send visitors, things that visitors might do that they want us to provide information, things that they want to promote, that type of thing. So we have approximately 30 members, and we've been working with Pure Michigan and UPTRA, which is the UP-wide, not to promote Dead River Falls because of the how much it's degraded and how difficult it is. So Destination Think is a worldwide group that we're working with. It's a collective. And so we have people from Copenhagen and Queensland and many from Canada. And we're all working on different things that we are facing as destination organizations. And so it might be over-tourism, it might be working with elected officials and making sure that we're getting messages across. So we share ideas on a quarterly basis, and we work together on a regular basis to try and raise the standards for all of us around the world. So we also fund quite a few events. You can see here 2022, 23, 24. 24, we had 75 total events, and we supported events with $171,400. NTN, we funded them for the past 2 years with about $11,000. Iron Ore Heritage Trail, because they have a revenue source, but we print maps for them and do things for them. And we've also created the Fresh Coast Light Lab and the lasers, and so we're supporting that as well. So research, one of the ways that we can help to guide us, not only from Respect Marquette County, but also having actual tangible research, and the big brother is definitely there, and being able to gather information to help us do a better job in making sure that we're bringing in the right people, doing the right things, and sending people to the correct place. So we're working with Placer AI, Datafy. Lighthouse is for short-term rentals, and so we can get pretty granular with that as well. We have Smith Travel Research, which is now CoStar, and that is the hotel industry. So we can gather information about the hotels, know on a daily basis what the overall destination within the entire county is doing as far as occupancy, as far as average daily rate. There's also Google Analytics and our digital advertising analytics as well. So this gives you an indication of, this is just one sample from Placer AI about the visitation that we have been seeing. One of the areas that the Respect Marquette County Coalition had come up with was Sugarloaf just had too many people coming to visit. So we were dispersing people to Thomas Rock and other locations that had equally beautiful views, but might be cause less congestion, especially during the peak times. So you can see our efforts in working to reduce visitation, and in this particular case, it seems to have worked. This is from Placer as well. This kind of tells you where people are coming from, the average amount of time that people spent. You'll notice that the top visiting locations, the majority of people year-round is Marquette County, which makes sense. And so this gives you an idea of where people are also staying. You can see the largest portion of people, travelers, are staying with friends and family. And so that makes sense as well. This is with Datafy, different resources, but we like to examine and look at different data to make sure that one isn't totally different than the other. And you notice it's fairly similar here, although it does say that 24, there were more people during the regular part of the week, and the decrease in 23 in 24 is less. This is for all Michigan DNR public lands and trails. And Natalie Kretlow in her office did a whole big presentation for Respect Marquette County with many different data points. We geofence different locations so we can gather the information to see how things are going. We can, any particular events, that type of thing. But this gives you an idea of the visitation here. So this is why I love to do what I do, and I'm going to get choked up because I always do, but Christine from Grosse Pointe Park said, Marquette is a favorite destination of mine. I just returned home and I'm flipping through the Travel Marquette guide. Thank you for including the wheelchair accessible guide, both in print and digitally on your website. As the wife of a wheelchair user, this means so much. Please continue to remember that many people who have mobility issues and continue to be a leader in promoting accessibility. Another reason to love Marquette, thanks again. And something very simple, great food, great shopping, and outstanding friendliness. Marquette has been my favorite place to travel for years. I'm looking forward to every winter trek and summer trip. The city, it's always growing and keeps so beautiful. And I understand this is Marquette Township, and these are comments on Marquette, but some people refer to Marquette as a whole. Go ahead. So in conclusion, remember that 50% of the people who are visiting Marquette County are visiting friends and family. So you might not know them, but someone here may know them. And I think the wonderful thing is people come here, they spend their money, and they just, I've been in 2 different places in Florida, and I was up in Pennsylvania, and I've never been in an area that people love more. Never hear a bad thing about it. They talk about how wonderful the people are, and there's some times during the summer when the traffic is tight and you might not get someplace you want to be, or you might not get into your restaurant, but just remember those are the people who are helping to keep those restaurants open, and the business is going year round. So we're really fortunate to live here. So why do people travel? They decrease stress, and Pure Michigan is encouraging slow travel. So instead of going to 5 different places in 5 days, go to 2 places in 5 days, and it really absorb and enjoy your time. And I think Marquette County is a perfect place for that. Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
Good compilation, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
For Susan? We like that a lot of the assets are in the township too, that helps.
It is. And that, when people do say, Marquette, it's the entire area. We have people snowmobiling in Gwynn and Big Bay and all over the place. And the county is just really, really special, so thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for the report.
Sure.
Okay. Next up is the purchase agreement from Renovare Marquette. We did have a discussion on this the last meeting for information. In the meantime, we did receive a purchase agreement. Because of the snowstorm, our last week's meeting was moved to this week. We were going to have representatives of Renovare at the last meeting, but they're not available tonight. They asked that they could come at the next meeting, so they will be on the agenda for next week, Wednesday at 5:30. So because we got the purchase agreement, I felt that it was important for the township board to see it and have a conversation and ask questions if you have them, or make comments, so that we can be better prepared for the conversation next week. I'm not sure if, because Jill asked to be on the agenda first and then the purchase agreement came later, I wasn't sure if that was her plan, but it is on the agenda as an action item next week. So, just for fun, because we did board of review the last 2 days and went through a lot of properties that folks came in and talked about and asked questions about, I asked our assessor if she had a rough idea of how much property we had in the township that is already tax exempt, because that's what this project would be. I had no idea. I had picked out, the fire hall, the township hall, AT&T, CAM, Fish and Wildlife. The state of Michigan has a lot of property, of course, that we don't get tax money on. Board of Light and Power, Whetstone, Railroad, Michigan Bell, which is AT&T. Of course, we do Superior Watershed, we have a drainage district, Badger Creek. Quite a bit there. Cayman on Trails, North Iron Church, Board of Trustees of NMU, County Road Commission, City of Marquette, I forgot that they own property in the township, AMCAB, Solid Waste Management, Marquette Public Schools, North Star Academy, the Sisters, 492, NMU, St. Christopher's, Adult Learning Systems, Pathways, Nature Conservancy. So we don't have a dollar amount on that, but there's 80 acres, 39 acres, 6 acres, 317 acres, 5 acres, 120 acres, 4 acres, 100 acres, 40 acres, 40 acres, 40 acres, 40 acres, 240 acres, 200 acres, 36 acres. So a lot of the land mass in the township is tax exempt. And I think based on what the board said at the last meeting, that's one of the biggest concerns that we have from the development side of this, from not getting any tax money. I do have an email that I asked if I could read it, and she said yes. Ann Giroux came to us a couple meetings now and explained the Brownfield Authority and the TIF and how that works with multiple projects as well as this one that we're being asked to consider. So I asked her where they were. Monday, the Brownfield Authority was supposed to have the discussion about the project that Lindenbar is proposing in the township. And, well, I'll just read what she said. The Brownfield Authority looked at a draft plan at its meeting on March 10th, which was this Monday. It was a 24-year plan. It did not take any action, the authority, or spend a lot of time on it because it hasn't received several items from the developer, including payment of an application fee, revised financing commitments, and a written commitment from MISTA for funding. In addition to that, the authority wants to know if the township intends to extend the deadline to purchase the property beyond the April 10th date. So while no decisions were made, I do feel that if the developer provides the authority with all the items it has asked for, there is no reason it wouldn't approve the plan regardless of its length. The Brownfield Authority generally leaves the decision of the appropriateness of the length of the plan to the local unit of government. And I will also mention, from my perspective, if local units want to incentivize attainable housing by using the Brownfield TIF, they are likely going to be looking at longer plans in general. I don't think that this will be unique to this particular developer. So I thought there was a lot of good information on there on how this is structured. And we keep learning new things every time we get information on this project. So, if you want to move on, or if you want to have comments or suggestions, I asked Roger, albeit too late, if he would look at the agreement. That's my fault. I didn't get it to him soon enough. To see if there were options with this plan that we didn't think about or aren't aware of. I did look up the date, Roger. We received the agreement on February 25th. So without putting you on the spot, do you have anything to add, or?
Well, the agreement is clearly, or at least I interpret it as a rough draft form. There are many errors in it and things that would need to be corrected. None of them are major. However, the main elephant in the kitchen is the tax incremental financing issue, and that the purchase agreement is silent. So on the one hand, section 6.3.6, the township would be warranting that it will cooperate with the purchaser. Seller shall cooperate with purchaser in achieving necessary governmental approvals for purchaser's intended use of the property. That really needs to be expanded upon because the township is incapable of providing advance approval of until details are provided on TIF financing. So there should be a paragraph in there that says that nothing within the purchase agreement can be construed to bind the township or the planning commission, for that matter, if there are more changes to the planned unit development proposal. Those are things that could easily be added to it, but which I think are fairly important to be added to the agreement if the township decides to go in that direction. So basically you have a purchase agreement that, a purchase option that runs through April 10th of 2025. And that's a little more, well, about a month and a half roughly from now that will expire. And at this point, one option that this board has is to extend that purchase option. The board is free to do that or to not do that. And I haven't specifically seen a request from Renovair asking for that at this point. Instead, what they've sent is this proposed purchase agreement. And another indicator that this was hastily put together is it's got reference to representatives from the Munising project that are listed in it. So they're clearly cutting and pasting from a different project, but in fairness, it appears that they're giving a template as soon as they possibly can, and what that should be interpreted as is a decision on Renovari's part to exercise the purchase option. In other words, that they want to attempt to purchase the property. So once that notification is received, the township has an obligation to engage in good faith negotiation on the terms and provisions within the purchase option. Again, I hasten to add that in my opinion, or my recommendation, is that the purchase agreement should expressly state, not just leave it to innuendo, that the TIF issue is something separate. And that is going to be a fair topic of discussion, I imagine, next week, because the purchaser may or may not wish to proceed depending on what type of commitment that it can obtain, or may not want to proceed in actually executing a purchase agreement until there is a commitment on the TIF financing, on the length of time, the amount of dollars at stake, that sort of thing. Those issues are not legal issues, so I'm not going to comment on them. Those are things for the board to deliberate and consider and weigh. But all of those issues need to be preserved in the purchase agreement before that purchase agreement is executed, in my opinion. And I can have some written guidance with bullet points at least before next week's meeting.
Okay, so I think you said that was one of the options. Did you have more?
Well, the option, you've got an option to insert provisions in the purchase agreement. You don't need to accept whatever the purchase agreement is in its current format that is received. I'm interpreting this, however, the fact that you received a purchase agreement as a decision on the part of Renovary to exercise their purchase option. So you must, as a board, in good faith, negotiate with them to reach acceptable terms that are mutually acceptable to both parties.
Okay, and if we don't want to, what happens? How
Well,
is
you
that?
must. You
Okay.
must negotiate
You
with
have
them.
to
If they are
negotiate.
going to exercise the purchase option, that's pursuant to the purchase option that was signed back in 2023, and then that was extended, I believe, twice. Another minor error in the purchase agreement that just comes to mind off the top of my head is I don't think they have their deposits right that are listed in there. And the deposits are not refundable no matter what. There was a $5,000 deposit with each extension, and they were to be non-refundable. They were to be applied toward the purchase price, but they are not refundable regardless of whether the purchase option is exercised or the property is purchased. And that needs to be clarified at least. And again, that's a minor one-sentence revision. I don't mean to imply that these are difficult items or serious flaws, but there are a number of inaccuracies that just need some revision before it's considered for signature by the township board, if the township board wants to enter into it. So the negotiation issue is what is acceptable to the township board for purchase terms, and what, by the same token, is acceptable to Renovari as purchase terms. That's what a purchase agreement is, just as if you're selling your house. It's the same concept that, I might be willing to replace my living room carpet for you if I really want to sell the house, or I might not be. Same type of situation with what's in the purchase agreement. It's a fairly long read, but it should be read thoroughly, and I can answer any questions that anybody might have on what does that mean from a legal perspective, but I can't give you advice on what you should do other than a few specific things that I think are critically important to be in it. And they're not.
Yeah, I found one thing I think should be in here too, and I've got questions. So I'm wondering the next step and how to proceed, because do we want to actually sit down and do a work session and try to figure out what we want to put in this agreement and bring back to them? The original discussion was a 30-year TIF, which would include about 5 years for the Brownfield Authority to regain some of their costs. So that left the project as 25 years. Well, in the last few weeks then, Renovari said that they could go to 24. So they would take a year off when they made some of the adjustments to the project. And Ann Giroux said that they might be able to look at the 5 years and reducing that. So she didn't give us a number. So a 30-year project is now less than 30, somewhere between 24 and 30. So we need to, because we are responsible to, or required to respond to this, we need to figure out what we want to put in the contract.
You don't necessarily need to specify a number of years or maximum dollar amount on the TIF in order to enter a purchase agreement.
Okay.
But the purchase agreement really should say and emphasize that the TIF issue is wholly separate from the purchase agreement. And what I mean by that is if they exercise the purchase agreement, they're committing to paying the price specified in the purchase agreement to Marquette Township, and then it will be their property. and it will be their property regardless of whether they're able to make the brownfield TIF work or not work. And that might not be an attractive option for them or us. So that's food for discussion, but we don't need to put in the number of years, in essence, to bid against ourselves on it. Until you get a proposal from them to consider, I'm not, from anything I'm not hearing that there's anything carved in stone that they can do it with a 24-year TIF or can't do it with a 24-year TIF. We haven't seen anything in a written format because there are so many moving parts with that in terms of MISHDA financing and other issues that might be their desire. But whether that will ever come to fruition, we don't know. So I think you don't need to specify how long of a TIF plan you're willing to work with, but you need to emphasize that the sale is going to be a sale regardless of what that turns out to be, and that the cooperation clause, which you must cooperate. Any good faith buyer and seller has to cooperate with each other, but you can't, as a governmental unit, bind yourselves as to future decisions that haven't even been presented at this point. And that goes not just for the township board, but that goes for the planning commission if they have changes in the plan to be reconsidered, or if it for some reason gets to the zoning board of appeals, the purchase agreement can't supersede those future decisions. And I don't know that this is saying that it's doing that, but let's not just leave it to assumptions. That should be spelled out.
So while you're saying that the TIF can be mentioned in here, are we only supposed to consider this from the perspective of buying the 5 acres?
Well, that's what I said earlier, is that's the obvious elephant in the kitchen, is what good does it do them to purchase it if everything falls apart in terms of financing? And quite frankly, I don't have information or insight to know where their financing is at this point, and it doesn't sound like the Brownfield Authority does either, based on their meeting as of 2 days ago. So all I'm saying is they are two separate and distinct things, but it probably, when you have your meeting next week, and if you have a work session between now and then, it could be discussed there also. But you don't have to put how long the TIF is going to be in the purchase agreement. You don't have to agree to that. And maybe I'm being a little repetitive, but it's a standalone agreement whereby Renovari would be purchasing the property for the specified price by the specified closing date. And even the closing date is negotiable. You can move that around if you want to make that shorter. For a project of this size, this magnitude, that's not an unusually long closing date, especially considering that in the summertime, realtors and developers are extremely busy. So even title companies, they have to get title insurance on it. That can be not days, but rather weeks long project before that comes through. And then if there are, in Mr. Cambenzi's field survey issues, that there's an encroachment, or they're wondering what they're going to do with that driveway that's over there, and that's something else that needs to be in the purchase agreement, is that's not our responsibility to remove that driveway. We'll convey it as is, the purchase agreement says that, but there should be no expense on the part of the township in providing the as-is ownership of it in making any changes or revisions. They're going to have to deal with telling the folks in Goodwill that they can't drive through there anymore, if that's the route they want to go, pun intended. So I don't know if there were specific questions that on the purchase agreement terms you wanted me to address, but I think we can put together something that points out some obvious deficiencies in it. And that could be presented probably by the next meeting, or certainly at the next meeting. I'll leave that to the board's discretion on whether you want to have a work session between now and then to brainstorm.
I can say gentlemen now, because I'm the only other lady. Gentlemen, your thoughts? You want to wait till next week and not do anything? You want to try to hammer out an agreement? I don't know. I think those are only two options, right? We can't ignore this. We have to address it.
Right, and the other sort of overlapping option is, I haven't seen anything, and I wouldn't expect that it would come to me anyway, but I haven't seen anything from Renovari asking for an extension of that April 10, 2025 purchase option expiration date. That's yet another option, I guess, if they ask for that. You could consider that. You've got the ability to extend that by, well, anything you agree to. 2 weeks, 30 days, 6 months, 5 years. I mean, that's all within your discretion. I'm not suggesting those are all good ideas, but that's another option at least.
Okay.
But the ball's in their court on that one.
I think we need to have a work session to figure out the agreement a little bit better before next week.
I have lots of red marks, questions,
Yeah.
paragraph questions. Clearly, there's a lot of stuff missing from the township's perspective. Maybe that's what you were talking about. It's written for them, which makes sense. It's their agreement. We need to add in our own protections.
Absolutely, and we probably have a lot of the same red marks without having conferred with each other.
Do you want us to do a work session? Next week? This week? Friday? Monday? Tuesday? Because we're getting
Wednesday.
into next Wednesday. We could do it the same day, yeah, if you want to. And I just assume have Roger there because this is a pretty important agreement.
I think we have to
So
have
it will
Roger.
depend on his schedule. When we have people working, we have to look at their schedule.
Tuesday or Wednesday would work for me, but not Friday or Monday.
Keep in mind, if you do it Wednesday, the likelihood of having a draft to present on Wednesday is pretty slim. I mean, you'll have talking points, but
Yes, John?
Might I suggest that we draft our own version of this thing with the assistance of our legal counsel to present in response
That's what I was thinking from the work session.
without the work session? Unless there's something specific in there you want, but I don't know that we need to have a work session to do that if there is something already known that's specific.
That's fine. If y'all have comments you want to make or questions, you get them to John or...
I guess we can air them here.
Follow.
We can talk about it here because there was just only a few points that we were concerned about. And basically, I think it was the TIF length.
Yeah, but if he's saying that that's not really part of the agreement, it just needs to be referred to.
Well, that was, when I read the agreement, I was, had the same assumption as Roger. It was silent to the TIF financing, so I think this board was quite clear last time. We were looking at, if any TIF would happen, it'd be a short-term TIF. It wouldn't be 24 years plus.
That's about 20 years too long.
Yeah.
I think Barrel and Beam, I think was 10 years. I don't remember exactly, or maybe less.
I don't know exactly, but I know the TIFs we have approved have been 10 10 or less, I believe.
John?
This is the first residential TIF that has come before you. And I'll just emphasize what everyone from the county level has stated, and maybe you haven't heard specifically, and that is, if a project of this type, which is specifically addressing missing middle or workforce housing, comes before you, it will need that much of a subsidy in order to be successful. Meaning, at $300 a square foot just to build the house, you cannot build it in that price range. So it needs the subsidies. And I'm just telling you what they're telling me, what they've told some of you on more than one occasion, if not all of you. If that tool is going to be used, it will most likely have to be a longer duration TIF. I'm not saying I'm a proponent of it, I'm just telling you if you really want to help get some of this type of housing available in the market, that's what it's going to take, no matter who the developer is.
If they're using that financing tool, if they are, yeah.
Correct. But if you're going to build missing middle housing, it will have to be subsidized.
So the only problem I have with that is the township's been hit with the dark stores for the last 20 years, basically. How much tax have we lost? And now we're gonna have a development. I'm not against the housing, because I think, it's supply and demand and we do need housing, but at what cost can we develop the housing without impacting the services and the tax revenue to the township? Because we've already taken hundreds of thousands of dollars of hits from the big box stores. And those aren't coming back.
And I just talked to a township resident right before this, and she said, township services are the most important thing to me, that you're able to provide what I need. And it gets harder and harder and harder.
Yeah, so you're gonna have a housing development that's not gonna pay any taxes to the township for at least 25 to 30 years. So I guess that's the question the board, as of what we knew last time, for what they proposed to us. It's up to this board to I guess it's a yes or no. Do you agree with that or no?
But we still have to address the purchase agreement
Correct.
for the property.
Yeah.
That's the first thing before us.
No, two separate decisions.
Turn your mic on, Andrew. But yeah, but like Roger had said, it's probably gonna depend on what the township's willing to, I guess, authorize if the TIF is used, how long we would authorize that TIF to be for, whether or not they would probably purchase the property. It's two separate issues, but they kinda are related.
So-
Correct, Roger? Yeah.
Correct.
So would we, Roger, would we specify that in the, I thought you said we wouldn't talk about the length of the TIF in this agreement. Just reference it, that it exists?
I will come up with something more articulate than this perhaps, but it would say something along the lines of, nothing within this purchase agreement shall be deemed to bind the township board to any particular, to TIF financing or any length of TIF financing, because that is a separate issue.
Okay.
To just make it clear that if they wish to purchase it, that's fine, they can purchase it. And maybe they have other financing mechanisms, or maybe they've got other proposals that would cost less. I don't know that information one way or the other. What you have before you is a purchase agreement that they've presented for the same number that's in the purchase option, and they want to buy it. So they're free to buy it on their own, regardless of whether there's a TIF funding or not. However, it needs to be abundantly clear, and that's what I've stated a couple times, maybe inartfully, but it needs to say that this purchase agreement cannot bind the township's future decision as to whether it will approve of a TIF program, or if it does approve of one, to the duration or amount of dollars at stake in that. That's a wholly separate issue.
So will we probably then have some kind of a physical agreement for the TIF?
That's up to Renovari.
Okay.
If they want to exercise their purchase option and buy the 5-acre parcel without having nailed down their TIF financing, there is a closing date of September or something in here, 2025, that they need to have their money in our pocket at Marquette Township. And the purchase price isn't that staggering, so they can probably generate that from someplace or another. But the bigger question is, can they then proceed to do the development on that property if there is not a TIF agreement in place, and nothing in the purchase agreement can be deemed to bind the township on either approving or disapproving of a TIF, or of agreeing to any specific terms of a TIF. That'll have to come later. So, to that extent, again, the ball is in Renovari's court to determine whether they really want to exercise this purchase agreement and buy the 5-acre parcel without the details of the TIF, the Brownfield Tax Incremental Financing Program, and the MISHDA financing and the other sources of financing being firmly established.
Okay.
What happened to the April 10th date?
April 10 was the date they have to decide whether they're going to exercise the purchase option. I am interpreting that as that they have decided to exercise the purchase option, and it's still before April 10th. So they've complied with that. All they have to do by April 10th is tell you whether they want to exercise, whether they want to buy it. That's what the purchase option is. And they sent you a purchase agreement, so that's certainly circumstantial evidence, at least, that their intention is to exercise the purchase option. But until it's signed and until you agree to the terms, neither side is bound to buy or sell the property. That's what you're in right now, is the negotiating phase of, can we reach mutually acceptable terms?
But we've heard at the last meeting, or I think it was when they came and talked to us the last time, that the $500,000 purchase price on the property has to be included in their funding, the way they're financing it. So unless they have somebody that's gonna write them a check to give to us for the property, it's kind of like a chicken and an egg thing. The $500,000 has to be in their funding stack in order to qualify for MISHDA.
They're planning on including the purchase price of the property in the TIF, meaning they won't purchase it and start getting assessed on the purchase price. That assessment goes into the TIF.
Right.
That's what that means.
That's not our problem to figure out where
No.
they get the money from.
No, I know, but the two things are together, they're linked, but they're not, they're still separate.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely, they are linked.
So they would have to, if we don't do this by April 10th, does that make a difference? If we don't address it, sign it, come up with is the April 10th date moot now because they exercised this?
there are a lot of moving parts, and I wouldn't go so far as to say it's moot.
Okay.
The fact is, however, that they have notified the township that they wish to purchase the property, at least that's my interpretation, by April 10th. They've notified you before April 10th that they wish to purchase it.
Okay.
There's nothing that says the purchase has to be finalized by April 10th, but they have to exercise that option by April 10th, and then a reasonable time is implied in the law. And they're suggesting a September, I don't remember, was it September 1, but it's in there someplace on closing date, September something.
So,
September 1, it is
Are
September
they
1.
bound to that then?
Yes, unless the parties
if we sign it,
agree to an extension.
what if we don't want to sell it anymore? Is that an option? Do we still need to present them with something?
Well, you should have decided that a couple years ago, I guess, because you
Yeah.
gave them a purchase option.
Okay.
They have the right to exercise,
That's fine.
I don't want to use
just
the
wanted
term right too many times in the same sentence, but they have the right to exercise the right to buy the property.
Okay,
So basically, all we're talking about is the purchase agreement, and if that's acceptable to us, which I don't think it is right now.
Well, it can't be right
No.
now because there are things that are inaccurate and incorrect, and then there are some things that I would recommend to be inserted in it. We touched on several of those.
Yeah,
September 1st, okay.
If there was another developer that was interested, then we can't entertain any conversation or agreement from them yet. Because
Not until this falls through, if it's
Yeah.
going to.
Correct. That's in your purchase option. That is the purpose of a purchase option, is to reach a consensus at the outset that I'm going to try to line up my ducks and purchase this property by a specified time, at a specified amount of money, and at least have some of the terms in that document. That was done in 2023, and now they've decided they want to try to purchase the property. So that puts us in the posture of having to consider in good faith the proposal.
Okay, so it's been suggested that, Roger make some of these changes and additions. If anybody has points that they think need to be in here or questions, to get it to him. And
Well, let me back up, though. We have to be cognizant of, I can't be having independent
Right, no.
discussions with
that's why I said get it to John
a
or
quorum
me or
of the
something.
board, or we
Yeah,
violate the Open Meetings Act.
yeah.
So,
I don't know where I was going with that.
well, you've got the decision whether you want a work session or you don't want a work session to discuss those as a group. And I for one, I can make myself available if you want a work session.
I just didn't know how much you guys looked at the agreement. If you had lots of questions, I can just give this to Roger.
I'm in agreement with our manager's suggestion that just from the discussion we've had tonight, that if we allow our legal counsel to make the adjustments that we've talked about tonight to it, I'm satisfied
You're good?
with that.
Okay. That's what I wondered, if you had things that you wanted to bring out. If you don't, that's okay.
Because then, as long as we take that burden off of ourselves, that we are agreeing to something that we're handcuffed to, then it's, the ball's back in their court. They can either say yay or nay.
And keep in mind, you don't have to have a final version to present at your next meeting a week from now. If you do not have a work session, what I would do is strictly put in some of the things that I thought from a legal perspective were important. If there are factual things like, the closing date, for example. I'm not going to tinker
That was my next question.
with that, because that can be whatever you want to have it be. Those are the types of things that really should be discussed at a work session for a consensus of the board. It would, there wouldn't be any action, there wouldn't be any motions, but what's the consensus? Do we like a September, are we willing to spread that out to September 1, or do we want something shorter than that? Those are questions I am not going to address in the draft I put together, because that's not a legal question. That's a factual determination that the board needs to decide. The price is not negotiable because that's in the purchase option, but
Maybe a work session after your draft then?
I would say if you're going to do the work session, wait until the cleaned up version is available that has our protections in it at least.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone beyond this point in the table is capable of getting that language correct on the first try. That's no offense to any of you, or even myself for that matter. We're just not trained to do it. And this whole TIF issue really can complicate things in our minds. What we have to do is approach the purchase agreement on its merits, knowing that the protection will be in there, that you won't be bound to make a decision in support of any kind of TIF after that. That's not to say that they'll agree to move forward, but at least we are negotiating.
Yeah. Well, if I was a developer and there was no guarantees beyond the purchase, I don't know if I would move forward, but that's just me.
though as a developer, let me play devil's advocate, you've had this thing out there for, bound up with a purchase agreement, or, I'm sorry, a purchase option for 2 years, maybe it's a good investment. I'm just throwing that out there.
It could be.
So that, again, we don't need to overthink the idea, what they do with it.
Yeah. Once we sell it, it's off our hands, yeah.
Well, it is and it isn't, because you know the TIF issue's coming back. But we have to just realize that these are very separate and distinct issues that have to be addressed at 2 different times and places by this board.
That's why I wanted this discussion.
They should be aware of how we feel about the TIF.
But until you're presented with a TIF with firm numbers and firm, both duration and numbers, the board is in no position to make a determination on what it is. If they were to come back and have some type of huge new grant that became available, so they only need a 5-year TIF, you know, I don't know. Am I aware of any such grants like that? I'm not. But until you have a presentation, I don't know that the board is in a posture to be making any decisions one way or the other as to what your position is on a proposal that's not been received.
Yeah. There's too many unknowns there, yeah.
And by the same token, it may be that funding sources are not as they were anticipated, so they're looking at a 40-year TIF. You just don't know that until you have something to be presented with and to then vote upon. And you should be thinking about what are the lines in the sand that the township is willing to consider, but until there's a presentation to the township, there really is nothing to consider on the table. So you don't want to give the impression of a preconceived determination when you don't have anything to determine.
That's fair.
And she may have something next week, I don't know,
Absolutely.
because she has to speak to us, so.
Well, I think you could clean up that purchase agreement in our favor.
I can try to do that, and I will try to do it in a, I'll try to convert it to a Word format and do it in a red line version so you can see where the new stuff is, where the changes have been made, so they stand out rather than having to read 18 pages and guess what's different.
It
So-
seems like they would want
We need a
to
motion
provide us
to
a.
do that.
Yeah, I'll make
We can
one.
usually
I'll
convert
make one.
those.
So I'll make a motion that we authorize our legal counsel to make the appropriate changes for the Township of Marquette in the Renovari Marquette LLC purchase agreement.
Support.
Okay. I'm guessing, Roger, too, that you noticed that Articles 9.3, 9.4, and 9.5 are missing? Or that's just numbered wrong? Page 12.
I was making
I can just show
a
you.
guess, let's see, that they were pulling it together from another source, and that they looked at it to determine that those provisions just had no applicability, and
Well, they don't even
forgot to
have the right
renumber it.
project in there. And there's another sentence on page 11 that just doesn't have a period, and it doesn't end.
Yes,
Stupid
I,
stuff.
That stuff.
Yeah,
yes, I saw that.
but anyway. Okay, we have a motion and a support on having legal counsel clarify and present us with the draft of the purchase and sale agreement.
Well, with the protections for the township in the agreement, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds good, and we had a second.
We did,
I was
yeah.
wondering before the vote on the motion,
No, that'll be after.
Yeah, he said after. Good, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you.
Ernie wants to speak now.
Anything else before we have Ernie? Okay, Mr. Johnson?
Ernest Johnson, 1962 West Fair Avenue. I've listened to all your discussions on that, especially on a purchase agreement. It's like anything, a purchase agreement that you go out, you also come back with your own purchase agreement. And that's what you need to do. As a resident, and I've been on the board, I saw what's happened, it's been 2 years now, and they haven't come up. I have seen no idea or no future that they're gonna come up with any money in the future. You're tying up some property in that I think you need to put out for sale at this point in time. And that, you wanna go back to them with your agreement, $500,000 at a given date. Nothing to do with TIF, nothing to do with anything else. We want cash on hand. What you do with the property is your own business and that. You'll meet all the zoning requirements of the township at this point in time. Nothing else than that. That's why I'm looking at it. Because once they get into a TIF, it's costing the residents of this township dollars. If not, all you have to do is look at what they're losing, what the residents be losing over the years and that. So if you go 10, 15, 20 years in that, the loss of funding for the activities in the township will be too great in that. To me, they've had 2 years to do something, and there's nothing that I've heard anywhere that they've come up with any money, and nothing to say that they're gonna come up with any money anywhere. And what's happening in Washington and the state and that, there's no money out there. People just aren't doing it. So my feeling is respond to the purchase agreement that you have to with your own agreement. Want $500,000 at a given date, and the property is yours, and you have to meet all the zoning requirements of the township and go forward. That's my feeling at this point in time. Thank you.
Thanks, Ernie. Dan?
I 100% agree with Ernie on that. And to delay this, if we're gonna put in our language to another purchase agreement back to them, I am not in favor of a September 1. Give them another 30 days if they want to come up with the money, but not September. We're missing our complete building season by waiting another whole summer to agree to them. And I personally, I agree with Ernie. I don't think they have the money. I don't think they're gonna come up with the money, period. So, something or get off the pot.
Well, maybe Roger can leave that date line blank, rather than, and we can figure out what date we want to put in there.
I
Or
can
put a
do that.
red line blank, you know, leave the September and then put a line for us. Anything else on that? Okay. Can share a couple things on community linkage. I haven't been to a whole lot of meetings because I can't get around usually, but I did call Ken at North Country Disposal and asked him how it was going. Had my foot propped up and he said, I was watching out my window and the trucks are going by, picking up the trash, and so I thought, I wonder if this is working. He was just full of happiness and good cheer, like Christmas time. He said, township residents are great. They're doing an excellent job figuring out what to put out and when. He said they're recycling like crazy, and he's just really happy. So I thought that would be good information, not only for the public, but for the board to share that.
They
So
came by.
it's working.
They came by my neighborhood, obviously on Monday. They're about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I just happened to be up and I watched them because I wanted to see very efficient operation, super efficient, where they grab that and take care of it in the second truck, and I was happy to see that.
You gotta remember to crush your cardboard and put it in the blue container though, because if it's sitting out there, they're not gonna take it. It's gotta be.
They're not gonna get out to pick it up.
Nope, they gotta, and they want it good and
Residents
dry.
doing that.
Pardon me?
There's residents doing that. They've
Oh, yeah,
noticed
quite a
piles.
bit. And I guess they just don't know. So I told them, I said, well, I'll tell the public tonight for the 1 or 2 people that listen to us and let them know, but I thought you needed to know that. Were you gonna talk about this in your manager's report?
I thought we were gonna talk about it under community linkage.
Yeah, okay, that's now.
But I'm certainly prepared to talk about dogs one more time if that's the subject I think you're talking about.
Yeah. Do I need to read it, or do you just want to reference it, or?
I don't think anyone needs to hear a recital of a letter to the editor published in the Mining Journal, but it's from a Scandia resident complaining that we've put up new signs on the Well Road that dogs must be leashed, and also suggesting that we shouldn't be referencing the state law, we should be representing our own ordinance. Well, our own ordinance can't trump state law. The only exception to that is a designated off-leash dog park, which I think the dog owners believe is what was established on the Well Road. Nowhere in the township's history is it ever documented that that was established as an off-leash dog park. Actually, our attorney's been here longer than me. Do you remember any action of that sort?
There was none.
There was none, he said. So, I will state very clearly for anyone that wants to listen, it was never a designated off-leash dog park. It was tolerated by township employees that were doing their job, doing well reads and water samples, because they didn't want to have to deal with the public not following state law, nor was it their responsibility to do so. Why is it a problem now? Because we have more activity out there for sure, and we also are aware of the liability if we don't take responsibility for enforcing what's occurring out there. Could it be an off-leash dog park? Yes. Do I think it's a good idea? No. Because a linear road with no fencing along the sides to keep the dogs contained is not a proper off-leash dog park. And I don't think that's what we want to do along the Well Road because there's too many trail crossings out there. No, this is not the mountain biker's fault. I'm going to be very clear about that. I'm a mountain biker.
Now we've heard.
I'm a mountain biker.
Has nothing to do.
I'm not opposed to dogs. I'm opposed to dogs off-leash that are not under control, even the owner believes they are. That's the problem. The owners think the dogs are under control, but they are not. Especially to non-dog people, period. I'm not opposed to dogs. I'm opposed to dog owners not being responsible dog owners. And I'm just the manager, here to do what you guys want. So, there you have it. I'm frustrated about the subject. Can you tell?
Well, because you've got to implement whatever it is we say, and that's your job.
It's easy to put up signs, but as soon as you put up signs, people get upset and they take the frustrations out on the wrong people. Volunteers that are college students trying to get their final credits so they can graduate. Why are they being harassed? They had nothing to do with it. This is silly, very silly. And I don't normally get this agitated, but how many times have we talked about it? A letter to the editor, come and talk to us right here. But they're not even a township resident. Why waste our time? And even the township residents that are upset about it know better, because they understand that the law is the law. And I don't think they'd want to come in front of the cameras and embarrass themselves, period.
Okay. I guess he told you. The only other thing I was going to mention that you probably already know is that we have a new county administrator negotiating a contract, so stay tuned for that. They'll have a meeting Monday, as I said, the public hearing on the ATV agreement that the state's putting off, so maybe go to the county meeting if you're interested, or Zoom in. What else? Anything else from the public? Okay, yep. I heard about it last night too from 3 people.
Yeah.
Not happy.
Not happy.
This just, I had no idea that we had acres and acres and acres and acres that we are not getting taxed money on. I just had no idea. It's just, I'm gonna have to add up the acres. I can't imagine what the value of this is. But anyway, okay. We don't have any action items tonight. I don't think we have any committee updates either, do we? Okay, any more public comment? We kind of lost some of our folks. Any announcements from anybody?
Ice rink closed for the year now, John?
Until further notice. Yes.
Do I dare ask you if you have anything else you want to add for your report?
Gujrala. If you don't know what that is, it comes from anger management. That's me settling back down. I have one thing for the personnel committee, and that would be for the 3 gentlemen on the far end of the table. We do have a need to schedule a meeting, and I would be interested to know your availability. I understand Friday and Monday are not good days from at least one of you.
For me. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, fine.
Okay.
I'm pretty well open, back in town.
You need like an hour probably?
An hour is usually about what it takes, but it really depends on how difficult questions are asked by the committee. This is an interesting subject, and it gives us an opportunity to even improve our internal efficiency, our team, strengthen the team, get the right responsibilities into the right seat on the bus. We have staff that has better, wow, can't get that out tonight. Better experience with certain HR responsibilities than the person that's currently assigned them. And in exchange for other duties that the clerk, I think, is willing to assign to me, I would like to assign them to somebody else, but we would have to compensate them. So I want to go through the full process, establish a new job description, bring it to the personnel committee, explain it, get your support or not, bring it to the full board, get the duties reassigned, and that creates this huge snowball effect of moving files, all that kind of thing. Getting them up to speed, organized, cleaned out, all of that, and then compensating that person for it. I would be trading some duties by taking some of the clerk's, most likely, we haven't gotten there yet, but FOIA responsibilities off of him. I think it's probably plus or minus a fair trade for me. So going into my contract negotiations, I won't have a whole lot of leverage to ask for some sort of gold-plated salary. I think that's never been the issue for me. there's other things that maybe we can talk about, but that's a separate issue.
So do you want this done like next week, or what's your timeframe?
I think the soonest we can get the 3 committee members to agree on a time and date would be ideal. I do still have one more conversation with the Professional and Administrative Association before going too far with it, because it will impact representation.
Well, you could do a doodle poll or something with the 3 then, and just set it up. Were you gonna try to do
I'll
it
handle
tonight?
that as long as they know that it's
Okay.
coming. Yep,
Okay.
thank you.
And I believe that one is not OMA either, because that's a
It's
personnel.
correct. It's personnel issues, so it is not a public meeting.
Correct,
I will invite those that have a right to be there.
correct.
Which is why there are only 3 board members on that
Correct.
committee.
Mhm. But it's also helpful in that I only need to, if it gets this far, convince one more of you.
Anybody have questions for the manager? Dan?
Did you pick a date?
I will send out an email tomorrow because it's going to be easier for me to do that with my calendar open in front of me. If I do it on my phone, I'm almost always wrong when it comes to calendars. It just, phone calendars don't work for me, other than for reminders.
Okay.
Is that okay?
To be determined.
Maybe next Tuesday or Wednesday, since we won't have a work session yet.
Tuesday, later in the afternoon would be better. Anytime Wednesday.
Carl's smirking, is that not good for you?
No,
It is fine?
you just wants it at 5:30 on Wednesday, we already have a meeting.
We'll hammer it out. I trust we can do that.
Okay. We only have a couple motions, but you can read them.
Yeah, so the first motion is to approve the consent agenda as presented. That was approved. The second motion was to approve the regular agenda as presented, and that was approved. And the third motion was to authorize legal counsel to clean up the Renovari purchase agreement and write in the township protections for the board. And that was approved. That's it.
Okay. So, next week, we'll have the purchase agreement. If for some reason Roger doesn't have the draft, we'll at least have it again. It'll be on the agenda, and then Joe will be here. We'll also have a COLA request from North Country Disposal. And John's got auto agent, or maybe that's yours.
That'll be from Andrew and Michelle for, about how, Andrew can explain it more next week, but it's escrow type software that integrates the payments. It takes a lot less work off the treasury staff. Like if your mortgage is an escrow, the firms can go in and see which one's already paid, so they don't have to double pay, and we don't have to issue the it's more of an efficiency type issue, but Michelle will be on next week to explain it along with Andrew, so I don't know, Michelle's probably talked to you a little bit about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be on there also, so
Okay.
that's all I have for
We'll
now.
have Andrea from the library giving us an update on what they're doing.
Bob
And
Hendrickson?
Bob, yes, he did change that, didn't he?
Well, we kind of
Yeah.
forced him to because we didn't get it on this agenda.
Yeah.
well, and then we'll have a library report from Paul, I believe, so, but Andrea will be here too, so. All right.
Okay, any comments, anybody? Our next meeting's next week, March 19th, 5:30. 5:30. This was just an exception because of planning tonight. We wanted to make sure we're gonna be out of here.
Messing everybody up with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I appreciate you guys jumping in right away and coming back, or coming in. That's it? Dan?
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Okay. We have 6:36. We are adjourned.